Thank you for the opportunity. It's always nice to talk about what you're doing. Do you see my screen now?
Yes, we see your screen, and yes, it's full screen.
Okay, cool. So it's like it's the first time I try to make sense of my world and like how I've been thinking, and I know that a lot of people that see my work, it feels very chaotic. Like one moment I'm working within a prison, and the next moment I'm trying to become a plant. So in this lecture, I'm going to try and kind of trace this journey from working within a prison and like kind of where I'm at today, where I'm trying to both become a plant and learn from plants as a person. So we'll start at the prison, day one. Me and a group of designers I asked to join me on this journey arrived in Litla Hraun, which is the all-male prison in Iceland, with the idea of making or like saving the prison industry and making everything good and life happy and so on. And the way we were going to try and do this was working within the workshops of the prison. So when you are sent to prison in Iceland, you are meant to work as part of your both punishment and also in your battering process. So this is like a underpinning of the prison system that like when you go to prison, you work and you learn about responsibility, and you're supposedly also supposed to learn skills. So as a designer, I thought like, okay, if we just introduce projects, like things you can make in the prison, can we do something more than only skills and responsibility? And also like the skills they were focusing on were very kind of just boring. It's just like they were more like mostly painting parts of buildings. So it's this kind of working within a context where you're only making one part of something that someone else will put together. So we kind of thought like, can we introduce ideas of happiness, fulfillment, building interest and satisfaction within the context of making objects? And it's also just rethinking what objects are, because like, of course they are a product that you can sell, but they're also how you make it and how you feel whilst you are making them. So our kind of first thoughts, also talking to the prisoners, were kind of focused on their interest, and cars were like a big thing. So we thought like, can we kind of reinvent this, making of the toy car and make it more in line with, creating painting a real sports car. And so this is like one of the outputs, and it's focusing on kind of like how you can make simple projects that kind of also you can finalize in one setting, and also that you kind of see the process from beginning to end, and it's in a way fun to participate. But the thing was that we had like quite limited access to the prison, as it is a prison, and prisons don't want people hanging out that don't have a business, like are not working there or are meant to be there for other reasons. So like throughout the project, it became kind of an experiment of conversation and trust. So like, yes, we did these projects, but did it really make the prisoners happy? And like, we don't really know like the impact, because like we weren't really allowed to kind of converse and get a glimpse into what it feels like to be in prison. And of course, like when you are in prison, you are super skeptical of everyone that's around you, and you are kind of continuously thinking that someone is gonna, like something is gonna harm you or is kind of gonna, you know, come back to you. And I think this is like one of the first time I realized that design is, you know, of course about aesthetics and understanding material, but the other thing is like understanding people and getting people to trust you. And if you don't have that, you like both are very likely to make projects that might not have an impact. And also you will never know what people kind of like how they react and how they kind of embrace your ideas. So the next project I stepped into was to rethink how we get, or like how we receive asylum-seeking children in Iceland. And so like when I got this project, you know, from the lessons from within the prison, I thought like, okay, how is it to come from a different culture as a child and being introduced to Icelandic environment? And of course, like this is like a fundamental philosophical problem and the question, like, is it at all possible to see the world from someone else's perspective? And like, I'm not really trying to answer that question, but rather to say, we can at least try to see the world from a different perspective. So the first thing we did was just to photograph their journey. So like putting ourselves into their steps, of course, not with all the, you know, experiences these children would have had coming to Iceland, but rather to kind of get a glimpse into the locations and the people they would meet once they arrive in Iceland. So this is the children's area at the at the Keflavik airport. So the children, the first thing they will see coming to Iceland is this setup. So we kind of saw immediately there was room for improvement, at least in relation to design. And then we also visited children that were in Iceland and had a conversation. So in this project, we had a much greater contact with those that were like we were, you know, hopefully gonna make a difference for. So we are still now in the airport. Then this is the next stop. So this is the foreign office. So like here's where you apply to become an asylum seeker in Iceland. This is the play area. So this is the only place where there are like a spot intended for children. And also talking to them, we got like this glimpse into their perspective. So if I read them out, at school, no grown-up helped me, just a friend who spoke the same language. I was scared and shivered with fear. I was also aware that this was the last chance, the last stop for my life. Waiting was difficult. We were scared of what would happen, and we understood nothing. Now, I'm not going to go into detail kind of like how this project unraveled, but this kind of thing of sympathy and caring for someone else, and how that potentially can at least give you an image of the world through someone else's perspective. And if you want to learn more about this project, the project about asylum seekers, I can post the website on the chat. But I really kind of started to think, like, how is it possible to see the world? And it's like super hard. And then I thought to myself, okay, and what's even harder? It's harder to see the world as something that's not human. And I thought to myself, like, okay, how would it be to be the ocean? Is it possible to see the world as an ocean? And like the answer is probably not. But like if we were gonna try to become the ocean, what would we do? Like, like would we embrace the visual components of being an ocean? Would we embrace the movement of the ocean? So I started to collaborate with performance artists in understanding how do you move like an ocean? How does a human being move like an ocean? And I did this kind of performative thing because this is the only platform, at least that's kind of accepted in our world, Western world, as being fictional but real. That's the theater. In theater, you can always, you embrace the fiction and you participate in it. You're aware that it's not real, but you still become moved by it. And also by kind of going into the ocean, becoming one with the ocean, can be a starting point of trying to understand how the ocean sees our world. And I think this is like both fundamental to becoming an okay designer, but also in order to kind of battle these challenges, which are climate change and social problems, is to kind of try and sympathize and care for your environment. And then continuing on this journey, I thought to myself, how does it feel to be a plant in society? And what are plants doing? And how does it feel like to become a plant? And like still the answer is like, nobody knows. But what can we do in order to try and see the world from this perspective? So I joined up with the woman on the right side, which is named Hrefna Lind Lárusdóttir, and she is a performance artist and voice specialist. And we started to kind of create this company or social or like a an NGO that would kind of push this idea in Reykjavik city that people should try and have like a glimpse into this plant ideology that we were talking about. So we kind of stepped both into this field of like identity. So like, might it be more powerful to dress like a plant than it is to talk about the climate problems we have? Might it be more provocative and like lead to more action to kind of identify as a plant than it is to think and talk about the world being kind of this horrible place where we are ruining everything? And of course, like now I'm not saying that we should not listen to scientists and like kind of embrace the information that is available, but rather what can design and theater and performance bring to the mix that science cannot. And I think this is one of the things it can do, is to kind of by embracing the aesthetic elements, by embracing nature as part of your identity, something happens and is like a precursor to changing something. This mood and this feeling that you are partly a plant. And then like we just continued and like tried different things. And so if you can hopefully hear this, this is a plant choir. So we were asking participants to voice their inner plant voice. And so like, and then we just continued and continued, like, we thought, like, can we make an exercise station in Reykjavik city where people explore elements of becoming a plant? So here we are seeing people in a repotting station. So they are kind of finding the space they need in order to grow. And we had like several other stations where you could kind of go in this cityscape and exercise your plant skills. So that's kind of like sunbathing, watering, rooting, and so on. So like, how can these kind of elements of exercising and elements we know in the cityscape embrace a plant identity, and how, and that with the hope that this plant identity might lead to sympathy towards nature in a different way than kind of like always making this rift, this distance between ourselves and the environment, to embrace humanity as partly plant, as both we kind of consume and interact with them in our daily lives. And kind of, yeah, then we just continued and continued, like with thinking like, how can we take people on trips in order to explore it further, kind of categorizing people as specific plant types. So we have like 4 plant categories, which are ferns and flowers, and conifers and mosses. So like also kind of further pushing this idea by kind of taking all of this identity and then stepping back into nature, performing, participating, singing, touching, feeling, seeing, and kind of trying to create this ambience, this flickering, where you feel both as a human and partly plant. And this idea is kind of, you know, might sound silly, and I think it is to a certain extent, but we really mean it, that kind of changing this perspective and like embracing other living creatures as effective voices in the world, there is some chance that we might be able to confront the challenges that we are facing. And yeah, so that's kind of the end of my talk. And I hope you were able to kind of follow this like weird moment and momentum that I've been going through with thinking about care and sympathy as a starting point for impacting the way we relate to the world and the way we treat our environment.
Thank you so much, Búi, to opening up us to new perspectives. This was super interesting.
Very interesting. I'm very happy that the Design Academy has you. It's a wonderful thought process, and all of the speakers so far are very animistic in their thought processes, which, you know, makes me very happy, because I think this proximity with nature is going to really maybe be one of the solutions, you know, to drive us into new behavior patterns. Because if I know how it is to be a plant, or how it is to be a salad, you know, then I will eat my salads with much more respect than I did before. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.